Hey everybody, welcome back to Help Me DIY. Today we're going to change the fuel filter on this 2002 BMW E46 330 Ci. Now if this is your first time to the channel, Rio Toro and I are giving away this car, so look for a link in the description on how you can win this for free. And I would recommend every 40,000 to 60,000 miles at the most doing this service, because that fuel that you're putting in does have crap in it. And just like an oil filter, it is cleaning things out to keep your engine running smoothly. So don't forget the fuel filter. This is the fuel filter we're going to be using today. It's from Hengst. You want to be sure that the fuel filter you get has two connections down here and one on the top. That means you have the right style. I got this guy from ECS Tuning. I'm going to put a link to that in the description as well. So this oil filter also has the pressure regulator built into it right up here. So make sure the one you have has this, and there's a little vacuum line that gets connected right here. So this is a pretty easy job. I'm going to show you every single step that you need to do in order to accomplish it. Now, the first thing that some people do is remove the fuse for the fuel pump, which is fuse number 54 in the case of the E46. And then they start the car, they run it until it stalls. And what that's going to do without the fuel pump running is it's going to relieve all the pressure in the fuel lines. That way, I guess when you take these connections off, it's not going to spray fuel or leak as bad. But to me, that seems like it's a little worse for the engine than dealing with a little bit of pressure in the line when you remove this, which really shouldn't be all that bad. So I'm not going to do that step. Some people do it. So if that's what you want to do, go ahead and do that first. But now I'm just going to get the car up in the air. Of course, I have the lift, which is super nice, but if you are just using jacks and jack stands, that's not a problem. You can just lift the front of your car, because that's where this is located, and then follow me. All right, car is up in the air, so let me show you where this thing is located. We're gonna come underneath here, and this piece right here is the cover that is covering it up. You can actually see it sticks out the back here. These are the two fuel lines feeding into the back of the fuel filter. So the first thing we have to do is remove this cover, and there are 5 8mm bolts and nuts we have to remove. Here's 1, 2, 3 over here, and then there are 2 nuts on the side that have these posts sticking out. So you'll need an 8mm socket, and probably an extension will be handy. After removing those, you just have to get it off of the studs. So you just pull it towards me a little bit this way and lower it. And now you can see the fuel filter here. It has this bracket on it as well that we're going to remove later. Also note, you can see that there is this foam piece that is in there. It didn't move on mine, luckily, so I'm just going to leave it there so that when I reassemble it, it stays in the same spot. But essentially all it does is keep this line off of the wall and keep things from rattling around. I have no idea when this one was last changed. You can see that it seems to be a little tiny leak there, because there's a little fuel that I can see. You can see that this is the vacuum line right here. So there's a little piece of 3mm hose, and this one is in pretty bad condition, it looks like. So it's a great time to replace this with any 3mm vacuum hose, or even better, upgrade it to a silicone hose, and then it won't deteriorate like that on you. There are 3 hose clamps that we're going to have to remove, 1 on this side and 2 on this side, just the closest ones to the pump. And these are actually special fuel clamps. So if you do replace these, make sure you get fuel ones. Supposedly they are made so that they do not damage the hose that they clamp on. Mine look like they're in pretty good shape, so I'm going to be reusing mine. So just for this job, I went and picked out this hose line clamp set, is what they call it. It's essentially like pliers that squeeze and hold the hose shut and lock in place, but they're made out of plastic so it doesn't damage your hose. So when I remove the hoses, I'm gonna go ahead and try to clamp them down to prevent it from continuing to leak gasoline. So I just went out and picked up some vacuum line. Sadly, they didn't have any silicone, but I will use this one here to replace our worn one. Before I start loosening the connections to this thing, you want to make sure that you have something to catch any fuel that will spill, because something will leak out. And I'm also going to take off this bracket with a 10mm nut. So once you remove this bracket, this part just lifts, rotates down, and then comes straight down. There's two hooks in the back that you'll see that are against the body holding it on. I'm gonna kind of pry this down off of the post. Then it will come off like this. You can see these are the two hooks that I was talking about that just hook into the chassis. So just be sure to have your clamps and your new fuel filter nearby and ready, and just remember to have it in the right orientation when you install it. Now these little plastic covers you're gonna remove. They're just to keep gunk out during shipping and stuff sitting around in your shop. But what I'm gonna do is reuse these and put them on the old filter when I take it out, and that's just gonna prevent more fuel from coming out once it's off. It's also a good time to check which hose is going where up here. This one has a little bit of blue on it, and it is the furthest inside, because when I replace them and put the new one back in, I want to make sure that they're going in the same spots. So the little clamps holding this on for me are 5mm, so I'm just gonna go ahead and loosen all three of them. Once the clamps are loose, you can just kind of slide them back here on the hose to get them out of the way. Might have to loosen them a little more. Just want to get them loose enough so that I can slide them back further on the hose to get them out of the way. There we go. And the guy over here. Now we're ready for the fun part, to disconnect them. Safety first, guys. Put some glasses on. Fuel in the eye does not feel good. I'm just gonna start by removing the vacuum line. Kind of twist it back and forth a little. That came off, but it also made my little foam thing slide down here, as you can see. So I'm gonna leave that there for the moment. I'm gonna go ahead and remove this first line here with my little bucket underneath me. I'll see if I can move it by hand at all. I don't think I'll be able to. So I've just got a little pry tool that I'm gonna stick up here and use to gently work on this. Man, these things are on there tight. All right, change of plans. I'm gonna start with the ones in the back because they look smaller and maybe easier to get off. All right, feels like with the metal one, it's starting to give a little. Just working my way around it. I'm exerting a good amount of force. There we go. That's sliding. Okay. So now that it's getting close to coming off, try to be ready with one of these guys. Try to be preventative and lock this guy. I don't know. This one might be too big. It's probably not locked all the way down. Try and do this from the top so it doesn't run down my hands. we go. So yeah, this clamp is too big. All right, I get the little hose clamp because you gotta use the little one for this. There we go. So that's what you can do to stop the fuel from leaking while you start working on the next one. All right, you can take one of the caps from the new one, put it on there so that won't be leaking on me. Go. And we got number 2 off. You grab another cap. Okay, 2 caps. Yeah, I was leaking out the bottom one really badly. Okay, now I should be able to twist this and get this bigger one off. Oh yeah, that's a lot easier. I can twist it. And that guy will pop off. All right, let's check another cap on the old one. Grab the new one, get it in the right orientation. All right, got it all the way back on so it will not be leaking. All right, got the outside one started. So I'll take off this clamp and it's gonna start leaking again. And stick it back on here as fast as I can. There we go. Messy, messy, messy. You're definitely gonna get some gasoline on you. So at least be wearing gloves, and I can get these all the way back on. I can just go ahead and slide the clamps back over and tighten them down. So if you are replacing your hose clamps, you want to do it obviously before you reconnect the hose, but I'm just gonna tighten mine now. We're pretty much all done. Just buttoning everything back up. I'm just gonna pull off our old vacuum hose. Actually just disintegrated there. This thing is stuck and stubborn. So I'm just gonna use a little pick tool to get it off. All right, out with the old. I'm gonna use those 2 parts to measure how big of a new one I need here. All right, new piece cut. For anybody keeping score at home, it was just about 3 inches. Mine still has kind of a line where the old one was. I'm just pressing it on that far. In case I didn't mention earlier, this is 3mm vacuum line, and the place that I went did not have silicone, so we're just going old school rubber again. I'm just gonna remove the cap on our new one, attach this end. Okay, new vacuum line, new fuel pump. Put our little piece of foam back up here where it was originally. I'm gonna put the bracket back on. Just gonna slide it behind it. And you can actually see up top here, if I move the bracket back out of the way, those 2 little slots that these slide into. So I just have to line those up to get our bracket back on, and just gotta give it a little force inward to get over our post. Yeah. Press it till we get it all the way back up, and just put our 10mm nut back on. Tighten this. Clean up our little marks and everything. Make sure there is no fuel dripping, because the next thing we're gonna do is check for leaks. Now, if your car is on jack stands, you don't have to lower it. You can just get in the car, but for me, I'm gonna have to lower this a little bit, and we're gonna test it for leaks. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get in the car And we are going to prime the fuel since we let out a bunch of fuel. And the way you do that, supposedly, is to put the car in ignition. You're not going to turn it on, but you're going to listen. And you should hear the fuel pump running for about 5 or 10 seconds. And that should have primed it. I'll take this back out. All right, heard it run one more time. So that should have been enough to put pressure back in the fuel system. Now we're gonna go ahead and lift it back up, or if you already have it up, go back under the car. All right, so we wanna look closely around all of our connections here, and we can see that that one looks good. Let's see on the back here. This looks good, no fuel leaking. All right, so at this point we can go ahead and call it done and put the cover back on. All right, make sure your foam piece is back where it started. Everything's lined up. All right, just get one of these, a couple of these attached. All right, that'll hold it in place for us. Let's take our 8mm and tighten everything back up. And the two nuts back in here. So one final note, before starting the car, you might want to prime it a couple more times before you start it, just to make sure that you have fuel in the system, but really that's all there is to it. So fire it up and make sure she runs smoothly. Oh, fired up first time. No issues. Except for all those dash lights. Pay no attention. All right, so that was it, guys. Really easy, and seriously, I'm giving this car away. Link in the description. Sign up to win it. So very few tools that were required. I do highly recommend the little clampy things. That's the technical term for them. So I'm gonna go ahead and put a link to that in the description as well to block off the fuel from spilling. But other than that, it's all just a standard 10mm, 8mm socket for the most part, and your new fuel filters. Another shout out to ECS Tuning for getting me that fuel filter, and I highly recommend using those guys. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you on the next video.